Hello everyone, it's me, HawkeyeG, and I'm back with another faction introduction video. Today, I'm doing the Ice Court, talking about what their faction bonuses are, what their legendary lord is like, and any unique mechanics that their faction might have. While Kislev is recommended as a starting campaign, it's definitely not the easiest one. I think it's bearable on normal difficulty, and of course on easy, but it can really get out of hand very easily, even if you make just a couple of bad decisions early on. That being said, it's still a very interesting campaign, and I think it's very emblematic of the theme and concept of this particular title. So of course, if you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and of course it makes me happy as well. And if you have any feedback or comments or anything to add, please comment below as well. I'd love to hear more from all of you. With that being said, let's get into the video. So the first thing I always talk about is the faction bonuses, right? These are the bonuses which apply globally, rather than just to your legendary lord's army. You can also see these when you're at the faction selection screen, so it kind of gives you a better idea. Right, so for the Ice Court, we have this Devotion bonus for Frost Maiden actions, a bonus to Control, Hero Recruit rank for Frost Maidens, and the Ice Court training duration reduced by 2 turns, right? So a couple of these are pretty straightforward. Control is just public order in this game, so that means you get a free +6 control faction-wide. Generally useful no matter the circumstances, and I think it helps mainly to offset the difficulty modifier, since control isn't really a big issue for Kislev in my experience anyway. Then of course you get the +3 recruit rank for Frost Maidens as well, no matter where you recruit them, right? So this helps you to get either an additional starting spell or 2, or else to give them some campaign bonus for some of their hero actions to kind of get them started and, hopefully not get them wounded right off the bat. Now, the others are a little bit more faction specific, right? Starting with Devotion gained. This is one of the major mechanics for Kislev as a whole. You use it for certain building upgrades, mainly your religion building and the legendary buildings, but of course you also use it for these invocations, right? And the way it works is pretty simple. Every successful hero action from a Frost Maiden hero specifically gives you 10 devotion, right? This means you should be using at least 1 in these early stages of the game for a steady supply of devotion. It definitely won't be enough to keep up with keeping your invocations active, but it can be really useful for affording to level up your religion buildings, right? Generally these cost about 30 per level up, so 3 successful actions means that you can get one of these built without really kind of spending anything or without it costing much, right? It's really great for getting those religion buildings set up early in the game. The other specific bonus is this Ice Court training duration. Whenever you want to recruit an Ice Witch Lord or a Frost Maiden hero, you have to do it through this Ice Court mechanic. Through this mechanic, they gain a few additional bonus traits that you get to select. However, there's still a few turns in this process where nothing happens. You're just waiting for them to be ready. So that's where the bonus comes in for this faction. It reduces that number of turns that you spend just waiting for them to get ready. It probably won't be enough to save you in a panic situation, but it's nice to have nonetheless. And it means you can recruit more in an overall shorter time span if you're looking to get some extra heroes or lords, or just to kind of have them ready to go whenever you do want to hire them, right? So if you kind of build up a surplus early on, it's a little bit easier to do that in a quicker time frame, especially if you have limited slots, or when you get bonuses that either reduce the cost or additionally reduce the time or whatever that you're going to spend in the Ice Court, right? Besides this, there aren't too many more specific suggestions to make, right? The biggest one is remembering that you get that hero action bonus for devotion from Frost Maidens, but besides that, these are pretty straightforward bonuses, and they're not really going to interact with the way you play for the most part, so there's not too much more to say on that. That means that it's time to move on to talking about the legendary lord for the faction. So, Tsarina Katerin is the legendary lord for the faction, if you're not already aware and familiar with that fact. We're first going to look at her unique trait, then talk about the unique items she gets, as well as looking at both her unique skill tree and seeing if she has any other skills which differ from a legendary lord or from a standard lord, as well as if her skills lend to any particular campaign or army composition strategies. Her unique trait here is the Ice Queen. 6 corruption reduction in the local province, 50% upkeep reduction for ice guards, and a miscast base chance of -50%. Now, the corruption, again, very straightforward. It's pretty useful, especially because you'll be dealing with chaos a lot, but there's not too much to say on that. Now, the base miscast chance one is actually pretty powerful as well. That's because your base miscast chance is 50%, right? If we were going to go and cast any sort of spell, and we wanted to overcast it, the overcast is going to have a 50% miscast chance base. Well, 50% minus 50% means 0. So Katarine can guarantee an overcast of a spell without taking any damage. This doesn't incorporate, you know, if enemy heroes have an ability or an item that they use on you, or some enemy units have some sort of debuff, but that's a little more complicated, right? Generally speaking, you're virtually guaranteed miscast free casting on overcast spells, right? So it's pretty nice. Now, I saved the best one for last here. Upkeep 50% for Ice Guard units. Now, obviously, this is massive, right? You can get this building pretty easily for them. This legendary, or landmark building, which lets you get Ice Guard early on. Otherwise, they're, you know, a T4 and T5 unit instead of just both being at tier 4. And normally, you can see 312 upkeep versus like Kossar's at 125. Well, 50% off of this is going to be a little under 160, right? And then we can still get another 15% bonus reduction from this building. So you can really get Ice Guard down to be basically as expensive as your Kossar's, right? That's really good. This is a high tier unit that with some bonuses you can get to be the equivalent cost of like a tier 0 unit, right? The unit that you literally recruit from the settlement. It costs almost as little as that. So that's how strong that is, right? Ice Guard are just really strong. They're a very good unit for Kislev. I mean, they're one of your like tier 5 end game units, and yet you can get their reduction down to like a tier 1 or tier 0 unit. Makes for a pretty obvious suggestion as to what to use in her army. Now the next thing we'll look at is her unique items, right? Thankfully in this game, we actually have a really nice little page for it that's super easy to look at, so we can talk about them here. Katarine, of course, has 2 items, as we can see, the Frostfang and the Crystal Cloak. Now, the Frostfang, again, has a bunch of really straightforward bonuses, right? Upkeep reduction, post-battle loot increase, recruitment cost reduction, and then a couple of like personal damage skills, right? The melee attack gives her magical attacks and some weapon strength, and then the ability, the Frostfang. Now, the magic damage helps a little bit with the chaos enemies you'll be facing. These kind of campaign upkeep and recruitment cost bonuses just obviously help no matter what the situation is, just kind of saves you money across the board. And then Frostfang actually does really decent damage against clumped up infantry. Almost 50% armor piercing damage, so we would guess that's like 14 armor piercing and then 15 regular damage. Has a pretty big radius, a really good range, and of course it doesn't cost Winds of Mana, so, you know, can't go wrong there. It's nice to have. The Crystal Cloak, more of the same. We've got a little bit of some campaign bonuses. We've got wound recovery time, hero action success chance, so, you know, functions like armor on the campaign map. It also functions like armor in battle, right? We've got a little bit of armor and melee defense, but this 10% ward save is really the best thing that we're going to have here. There's actually this Crystal Cloak ability, which is really strong as well, right? So we have not only 10 ward save at all times, but we have 20% damage resistance for 31 seconds after casting, right? Whenever you cast a spell, it'll activate this ability. This ability will stay active for 31 seconds, and as we'll see in some of the other reasons in here, we're going to be able to cast a lot of spells and keep things pretty consistent. So you can pretty much have full uptime on 30% ward save, right? So we've got these kind of other obscure bonuses, but the ward save is really where it's at with the Crystal Cloak. It's very strong, right? 30% ward save is really good. Now, these don't really have any super interesting bonuses, but they will help quite a bit with both the strength and survivability of the Lord, as well as a little bit of that money management boost, right? A couple of cool abilities, but that's about it. The next piece to look at is the unique skills, right? So we're going to look at her unique skill tree that she gets as a legendary Lord, and we'll see if she has any skills that are unique to her that wouldn't appear on a default Ice Witch Lord as well. So the first skill in her tree is all about her spell casting, right? Reduces cooldown for all the spells so that we can cast them more often, reduces the Winds of Magic by a little bit for every spell, and then reduces Winds of Magic for specific spells as well. Now, note that the specific cost reductions are actually for the upgraded versions of the spells, which I think is kind of nice, but they're, you know, a little bit specific usage. The Death Frost Overcast is just going to have an extended cast range. I mean, that's still pretty... Like, that's kind of nice to be able to dump this on somebody pretty early on, but it is expensive, right? And then the Crystal Sanctuary Overcast actually gives this area of effect, which is really nice to have. And then the Heart of Winter basically just doubles the damage. So nice to have, but certainly expensive spells. And the one cost, the like -1, doesn't really offset the cost of overcasting them. So it's nice, could be better, but it's good to have. Especially the cooldown as well, and just the reduction for all spells is nice to have. Now, in this cluster here, we've got 2 skills for boosting Katarin's personal performance, right? One for health, armor, and weapon strength, and then another one just for speed. I think one of these is kind of obviously better than the other, but frankly, we'll end up getting both, and we'll see why very shortly. There's also 1 skill for boosting army units, specifically the Ice Guard. The melee defense bonus is pretty big here, and we already have that upkeep reduction bonus from her trait. If it wasn't clear by now, Ice Guard is the way to go with Katarin, right? You can also get the missile strength and melee defense further increased for them from this red skill tree line. This is something that everybody has, but yeah, Ice Guard, that's the way to go. Now, the last skill that we have in this unique tree, Con Queen, is a couple of campaign bonuses, right? We get a little bit of diplomacy bonus, we get some devotion per turn, we get control all provinces. Pretty basic stuff, still really nice to have, especially the earlier you get it on, the better. Of course, the control isn't really that strong, seeing as we already have 6 control faction-wide as a faction bonus, so it's not that great, but, you know, the other bonuses are nice, and additionally, we want to get all 4 of these because you need all 4 in order to unlock this last ability, Shield of Ice. This gives you 8% ward save to every unit in the army. Now that's really good, right? Compared to something like, you know, 10% ward save for just the Lord. This is 8% for everything in this army. It's really good. Even if you don't think some of these skills are super useful, this is worth getting all of those skills for, at least in my opinion. Being able to give yourself almost 10% damage reduction for all types of damage to all units in your army, that really is going to stack up pretty heavily, right? Now, that's all that we have for her unique skill tree here, right? And besides that, Katarin doesn't really have anything that replaces other skills that standard Ice Witch Lords wouldn't have. The only one to point out is this Snow Leopard Stalk ability, right? Gives speed bonus and stalk to Snow Leopard units. Now, they're a tough unit to use well. I think they're pretty niche. I don't even know if I'd really recommend them. Yes, you do start the game with one, but I wouldn't invest into this skill point because you have a single Snow Leopard, right? They can be kind of cool to have, but this is a good bonus, right? Giving them stalk, then they can do exactly what they're essentially designed to do, creep around the backlines and function as assassins. But, you know, that's probably not, well, it's there, right? I don't know if that's what I'd recommend as a way for people to play the game, but this is an option, and like I said, this is the one unique skill that Katarin is going to have, aside from her unique skill tree, that is going to be, this is not going to appear on any standard Ice Witch Lord skill tree, right? So it's cool and it's niche, but it's really the only other special bonus that she gets. Now, with that, we've reached the end of the Lord-specific stuff, and normally I'd actually talk about the faction's unique mechanics here, but for the 2 starter Kislev factions, there really aren't any, right? There are, of course, several race-specific mechanics to Kislev as a whole, and but I'd rather cover this stuff in a separate video because it's going to apply even in the future when more Kislev factions get added. Presumably, if we do get more added, whatever, they're going to function the same, right? They're going to have some of these same, like, core concepts. At least that's what I would assume. And even Boris, his will function a little bit differently on the supporters mechanic. But again, that's something I'd discuss in his intro video, and the rest of this would be for kind of its own video of discussion. So that means that this is the end of the video, right? I hope that it was informative and useful to you. There's so much to learn in this game, and even though with this particular faction, even though it doesn't have a lot of really specific differences from, you know, past games and past factions, there are still a lot of small details which are easy to miss. Now, if you did enjoy this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and as always, feel free to leave your feedback in the comments section below. What information did you find most valuable? Is there anything you think I missed? Or which factions would you like to see me cover in the future? I hope you let me know, and I look forward to hearing from you all. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.